Morning. The Iowa Utilities Commission is now in session. I am Chair Sarah Martz. With me today are Commissioners Josh Burns and Eric Helland. It's 9 a.m. on October 15th of 2025, and this is the time set for the Commission's monthly meeting. At the end of this meeting, we have designated time for public comments. Public comments must be made in person and are to be no more than 3 minutes for each individual who wishes to speak. There was a sign-in sheet in the lobby before this meeting in which you could inform the commission if you have public comments you wish to make today. I will call the names in order of the individuals who have stated they would like to speak, at which time you may come up to the podium and make your comments. If you have not yet signed up and would like to make a public comment, please see IUC staff in the lobby and add your name to the comment list. I will go over this all again when we get to the public comment portion of today's agenda. We will begin the meeting with a motion to approve the previous commission meeting minutes. I move for approval of prior commission meeting minutes. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. We will now go to discussion items with Mr. Giddens, who will present on RTO and federal regional updates. Mr. Giddens.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Eric Giddens. I'm the Federal Regional Coordinator here at the Iowa Utilities Commission. I'll provide a brief update of our federal and regional work at the Commission. So as a part of our ongoing effort to educate the public about our federal and regional partners, I want to share a little bit today about one of our primary federal partners, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. FERC is an independent U.S. government agency that operates within the Department of Energy but maintains its independence. FERC has authority over the interstate transmission and wholesale sale of electricity, as well as the transportation of natural gas and oil through pipelines. It ensures that rates for those services are fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. FERC is responsible for licensing and inspecting non-federal hydropower projects, ensuring their safety and environmental compliance. FERC reviews and approves proposals for major energy infrastructure projects, including interstate natural gas pipelines and liquefied natural gas terminals. FERC sets and enforces mandatory reliability standards for the bulk power system, working with the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, referred to as NERC, to maintain the integrity and security of the electric grid. In the last two monthly commission meetings, I've described the regional transmission organizations, or RTOs, with which we also partner. As a recap, RTOs operate large regional electricity systems, of which almost all of our Iowa electric utilities are members. The RTOs operate the bulk electric transmission system, managing the flow of electricity and maintaining reliability throughout the system. They also perform planning services for future system needs. The RTOs, which our Iowa utilities are members of, are the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, or MISO, and the Southwest Power Pool, or SPP. The next two slides show images of the MISO and SPP regions and some descriptive statistics about each RTO. I won't go into those details, but just wanted to provide those again for a refresher for the public. There's MISO. And that's SPP. The green is the original SPP territory, and they are in the process of expanding to the west. So that's what the other orange and yellowish colors are to the west. And now for a brief update on current federal and regional issues that we are working on. So FERC updates. I wanted to tell you that new FERC Commissioners Laura Sweat and David Lacerte were confirmed by the U.S. Senate on October 7th, filling 2 vacancies on the commission that had been open for a couple of months. And also, FERC is still currently fully operational, even amidst the federal government shutdown. But operational funding is likely to dry up soon, and then they will move from a workforce of around 1,500 to a skeleton staff of about 60, which would obviously impact their ability to carry out the important functions I described earlier. So for MISO updates, first, on the 5 MISO states complaint that I talked about last month regarding the Tranche 2.1 transmission projects, a reply was filed by the 5 states on October 3rd in response to the host of protests filed in response to the original complaint. The 5 states continue to challenge MISO's project modeling and cost-benefit analysis. I wanted to point out that one argument made in this most recent filing by the 5 states is that declassifying the Tranche 2.1 projects as multi-value projects, or MVPs, would not harm reliability in areas like Iowa. Our analysis suggests this argument is flawed, as such a change would shift costs locally, potentially making the projects unviable. We're awaiting action from FERC on the original complaint, and there is no deadline by which they are required to act. Second update from MISO. MISO filed a request to increase the number of projects studied quarterly in the Expedited Resource Addition Study, or ARIS, that we've talked about in previous meetings. From 10 to 15 per quarter, with a requested effective date of November 6th. This is a good sign that suggests that implementation of the ARIS process is going well at MISO. Third MISO update. MISO recently discovered a 7-year-old coding error in third-party modeling software that has resulted in an inflation in the planning reserve margin requirement. This error led to an over-procurement impact across the MISO region of about $280 million for the 2025-2026 planning resource auction. Utilities that over-procured resources in the auction will be issued refunds, and utilities that under-procured resources will be issued invoices. Those refunds and invoices are currently being processed in monthly batches, with the first batch sent out last month. Fourth MISO update, the last iteration of MISO's futures modeling, which is the first step in their long-term planning process, showed an unrealistic surge in early year renewable construction. So MISO went back and added additional constraints reflecting new conditions that have recently emerged. The newest models now indicate a reduction in renewables build out and a greater build out of natural gas resources. And finally, MISO is conducting a long-term load forecasting pilot study to gather more granular load data from utilities, including large load additions such as data centers. This survey is due November 7th, and we encourage our Iowa utilities to participate in this important effort. Now to SPP, Southwest Power Pool updates. First, the Cost Allocation Working Group approved a policy proposal on long-term congestion rights, or LTCRs. This change aims to increase the total volume of LTCRs awarded by allowing the quote-unquote netting of flows on electrical paths. Second update on General Interconnection Network Resource Interconnection Service, or GINRIS. We're full of acronyms around here. Base plan funding. The Cost Allocation Working Group passed a measure to allow certain generation interconnection projects to qualify for regional cost funding before the formal planning process in 2027. This is viewed as a pragmatic step to enable the funding of generation projects that have already been granted firm transmission service. And finally, the SPP Cost Allocation Working Group approved 2 alternative cost allocation recommendations from a subgroup focused on FERC Order 1920, which requires a new annual 20-year integrated transmission plan. The first recommendation is to use a deliverability/sub-regional allocation methodology to allocate costs for long-term regional transmission projects that have received notifications to construct as a part of the 20-year transmission planning study. The second recommendation is a public policy cost allocation approach and a state agreement framework. These items will be presented to the Regional States Committee for consideration in November, and I'll remind the folks, the public, that Commissioner Burns is our representative on the Regional States Committee. So he'll be considering that next month. Then for an update from the U.S. Department of Energy, the DOE has formally revoked the $464.5 million Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnerships, or GRIP, grant that was awarded to the MISO SPP Joint Targeted Interconnection Queue, or JTIQ, portfolio of interregional transmission projects to be built across the MISO SPP seam. This funding withdrawal removes an amount intended to cover approximately 25% of the portfolio's estimated $1.6 billion capital cost. Despite the cancellation, MISO has stated that the JTIQ transmission projects are still approved and remain included in their system modeling for planning purposes. However, the loss of the grant is significant because FERC approved a cost allocation method that placed 100% of the remaining project costs onto interconnecting generation customers, i.e. new generation developers, a decision which was largely justified by the presence of the federal grant. The cancellation is expected to significantly increase the cost for those generation developers, which could challenge the viability and construction timelines of the projects. The project partners, including the Minnesota Department of Commerce, which is one of our sister commissions in the MISO region and the SPP region, they have a 30-day window to appeal the DOE's termination decision. And then very briefly, just wanted to point out a few meetings that are coming up. On November 6th from 1 to 3 p.m., we will have our MISO stakeholder meeting here at the IUC. On November 18th from 9 to 11 a.m., we'll have our SPP stakeholder meeting. And then on November 12th, from 10:30 to 12:30, this isn't here locally, but I wanted to point out that Chair Martz is now a part of the FERC NARUC Current Issues Collaborative, and that collaborative is holding its first meeting on energy project permitting reform during the NARUC annual meeting in Seattle. And so she'll be a part of that, and that can be live streamed on YouTube for people that are interested in watching that meeting. That's from 10:30 to 12:30 Central Time on November 12th. And the last thing I wanted to point out is coming up next week, October 20th from 1 to 2 p.m., the National Council on Electricity Policy is having a webinar on managing costs and risks of load growth. And that webinar is moderated by Jennifer Easler of our Office of Consumer Advocate. So I just wanted the public to be aware of that. That can also be live streamed. So those are the end of my updates. I apologize for the length, but happy to take any questions. You have them.
Go ahead. You had a question.
Okay, I've got a question for you, Mr. Giddens. It looks like Commissioner Burns does too. On the coding error at MISO, did I take your question? Okay. You did say that was in the hundreds of millions of dollars, kind of an error there, and that there would be invoices and refunds going out. Do we have any transparency from MISO about the amounts that our utilities are impacted by?
We have not been given that information, no. Only that refunds and invoices are being issued. They started last month and towards the second, third of the month, and then they're going to be issued every month until they're exhausted. Not sure exactly how long that process is going to take, but that's the only information we have right now.
Okay, thank you.
So just to piggyback on that, so we're not aware of which utilities in Iowa are impacted.
We're not.
Okay, so if we have a utility in Iowa that were to be given a refund, then that means that they were short, correct? Because they were going out onto the market to get more.
The fact was that they over procured resources in the auction, and they're due a refund. So you're correct.
So yeah, so if they're going after more resources, it means that they maybe didn't have it themselves to provide. So if we have a utility that's not getting a return, then they probably didn't have to go procure those resources.
That would
kind of a weird way to
think about it, but that is logically correct.
So I guess the next question would be, how do we find out the who? And then the next question would be, what happens with that money that they're refunded? And I don't know if that would be an INU or something we would issue to the utilities to look into.
Yeah, I will point out that as a part of our winter preparedness docket that we've opened, it, I know Michael Epping is going to talk about that later in the agenda. We submitted questions for the utilities to respond to in that docket. And one of the questions was with regard to this issue and how it impacted our utilities.
I think that's all I had. Thank you for the updates. It's all good stuff. Have you had, I guess one last thing, have you had any communications with Minnesota on that grant? Because I know that they were the lead on that, and it was an important grant to try to, you know, build connections across the seam, and maybe, you know, people in the public aren't quite sure what we talk about when we say the seams, but it's where like an SPP boundary and a MISO boundary meet up, and then try and get those electrons across the two different RTOs.
Yeah.
But that was an important grant to get more connectivity between the two so that we can move energy in times of need.
Exactly.
But have you talked to Minnesota at all about their appeal process, or?
Not directly, not a one-on-one conversation, but as a part of our involvement in the organization of MISO states and the SPP Regional States Committee, this issue has been talked about, and so we're aware that they're very concerned about it. Not sure yet. They haven't said whether or not they're going to follow up. You know, I mentioned that they have a 30-day window to appeal that termination, and we're not sure yet if they're going to do that. I haven't heard for certain, but yeah, but they're very concerned.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Giddens? Okay, thank you, Mr. Giddens.
Thank you.
Next up, Ms. Raby will present the litigation status report. Ms. Raby?
Thank you, Chair Martz. Good morning, commissioners and members of the public. My name is Michelle Raby. I'm one of the attorneys with the Iowa Utilities Commission. I primarily handle litigation for the agency. The litigation update for this month on the Enterprise Products Operating versus Iowa Utilities Commission case. This is where Enterprise was challenging the IUC's order that imposed a civil penalty of $200,000 for each of 7 pipelines and 2 storage facilities that had not been permitted in Iowa since Enterprise purchased them in 2002. So the total fine that the commission imposed was $1.8 million. As this case has progressed through the appellate process, Enterprise's argument has primarily become that it was 1 pipeline, not 9, that despite the fact our position was the evidence pretty clearly shows it's 7 pipelines and 2 storage facilities. They have continued to assert it's 1 pipeline, so the maximum penalty would be 1 $200,000 penalty rather than 9. We argued this case at the Court of Appeals on October 7th, 2025, and the case is now submitted to the Court of Appeals, which means our part is done for now, and we just wait on the Court of Appeals decision, which usually takes a minimum of a few months to be issued. And then the route from there is the party who doesn't prevail can file a petition for further review to the Iowa Supreme Court, which the Iowa Supreme Court doesn't grant a lot of petitions for review, but that would be the remedy if a party wanted to do something after the Court of Appeals decision. The next case is the Shelby County versus IUC, which everyone knows, I believe, is the Summit case. This case involves a multi-party challenge to the IUC's order of June 25th, 2024, conditionally granting Summit Carbon Solutions petition to build and operate a 688-mile hazardous liquid pipeline through 29 counties in Iowa. Developments on this since last month's meeting are that on September 19th, 2025, Summit filed a motion to remand the case back to the agency and asked that the record be reopened to allow additional evidence. Basically, they're asking for a few modifications to their original permit, things like modifying the order so that it doesn't specify the route has to go through North Dakota and South Dakota, rather that it just says that Summit has to have a route beyond Iowa, but that it not specify where it goes. And also changing some things such as diameter of the pipeline in certain segments. The IUC took no position on Summit's motion. We just asked the court for some procedural guidance as to if it was going to remand the case, how it wanted it to look when it came back to the court as far as the record and procedure, things like that. The court held oral argument last Friday on October 10th. The matter, all the parties argued, was about a 2.5-hour hearing. And all the parties, for the most part, opposed Summit's motion, except for Farm Bureau and the Crockett family, which did not oppose the stay, but asked that basically the whole matter be stayed, and that the part allowing any eminent domain to proceed also be stayed while this second amendment comes before the commission. So, but everyone else opposed it, and it's now also under advisement. And Judge Beatty, Polk County District Court, indicated it would be a couple of weeks before he would have a decision. Then the next case is Swan Lake versus Iowa Utilities Commission. This was Swan Lake Road Farms appeal of the IUC's granting of ITC Midwest petition for an electric franchise of approximately 4.8 miles of transmission line in Johnson County. The district court issued its ruling on September 30th, 2025. It affirmed the IUC's decision to grant the franchise, but it also held that because the Iowa statute, it's a DOT statute, 306.46, because that statute expanding the scope of a public road easement was not enacted until 2004. The public road right-of-way in this case predates 2004. So the utilities actions constituted a taking for which the landowners are entitled to just compensation. ITC Midwest has until October 30th to appeal the decision. You have 30 days from the date the decision comes out. It has not done so at this time, but one update since the presentation was prepared, that Swan Lake did appeal the decision on October 13th, 2025. And again, the utility would have until October 30th. And there would be nothing for the IUC to appeal because the district court affirmed the IUC's order. So just have to wait and see what happens on that one. And then the last case is the Hawkeye Land Company versus IUC and Metronet. It's a Lynn County case involving an April decision of the IUC that Metronet's crossing at a certain intersection in Mitchellville, Iowa, falls within the scope of Iowa Code 476.27, and that Hawkeye Land Company is thus entitled to damages in the amount of $750 for Metronet's railroad crossing at this location. The answers have been filed, and the only new thing going on is that the IUC has prepared the agency record for filing with the district court. Any agency on an administrative appeal is required to prepare and file the record with district court. That's just all the anything that happened at the commission level, the decision, any filings, anything like that at the agency level, we submit that to the district court. So that's ready to go. And then once the court gets that, they'll set a briefing schedule. So that's it for litigation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Raby. Any questions?
Yeah, one quick one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification, Michelle, when you said expect a ruling in a couple weeks, will we be filing briefs, or were arguments given in lieu of briefs?
On the Summit
The
case?
Shelby case, yeah.
Everybody filed a response to Summit's motion for remand in district court. I know there are a lot of things pending in front of the commission as well, but from the district court angle, all the parties filed what they were going to file. So you can call it a response or a brief.
Yeah.
So that's been done. And then the argument followed. That was last Friday.
Okay,
And now it's under advisement. Judge Beatty said it would take him a couple of weeks just because of the
right.
volume of
So a
everything.
couple weeks from last Friday.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raby. All right, next, Mr. Davis will present information on commission billing, followed by an accounting update.
Good morning. Chair Martz, Commissioners Burns and Helen, Phil Davis, Accounting and Assessments Bureau Chief. With the end of state year fiscal 25 and the fourth quarter assessments having been sent out, we're at the time of the year where we calculate and distribute the remainder assessments. As a result of a discussion in an earlier meeting with this group was to put together a presentation to kind of share some information, a little bit of background, kind of give an annual update on the process. And as a reminder about the remainder, the State of Iowa Code grants the authority for the Iowa Utilities Commission to allocate and charge directly the expenses attributable to its duties to a person bringing a proceeding before the commission, or to persons participating in matters before the commission, or to persons subject to inspection by the commission. So to provide a little bit of insight, just kind of an illustrative purposes, our quarterly direct billing process looks kind of like this. All members of the Iowa Utilities Commission, all staff members record all of their time associated to the work that they do. Some of that is directly attributable to projects, or what we refer to as dockets. And it may be a host of other assignments that they have, but that docket information is important because it is the basis for the direct assessments to entities. That time that is attributed to those dockets or projects, plus any attributable expenses that are also included, result in the quarterly direct bill invoices or direct assessments. Those are sent out on a quarterly basis and usually calculated the month following the end of the quarter. And then those are sent out to all of the entities that are impacted by those recorded times. The commission may assess an amount remaining after the deduction to all persons providing service over which the commission has jurisdiction. Now, a portion of the remainder could be attributable to specific industries, meaning that if some of the time that was recorded was attributable to electric or to gas, wouldn't necessarily be attributed to as an expense to an entity that is not involved in that industry. So some of those dollars, or some of that time and some of that expense can be attributed through an industry remainder process. So to kind of give you then another illustration, so the actual operations cost, which the Iowa Utilities Commission knows typically within about 2 months after the close of the fiscal year. There's a hold open period that starts July 1 with the beginning of the next fiscal year that allows agencies to pay any remaining invoices to vendors, to collect any outstanding debts on the closed fiscal year, and to determine what the final actual operational costs are. The Iowa Utilities Commission only invoices to all entities only for the direct specific cost of operating the agency. Anyway, so the actual operations cost minus any of those quarterly direct assessments or direct bill invoices equals the remainder assessments. Then to provide a couple of additional illustrations, then the industry remainder, which is an option depending on how time is recorded, if any expenses are attributable to a specific industry, each of those are outlined here to kind of give you an illustration of all time and expenses related to electric or to gas or to telecommunication or to water utilities, but maybe not to a specific company or to a specific project or docket would be the basis for the industry remainders. And then finally, to give you some insight then on what the final remainder looks like, which is what we're calculating at this time. So total actual expenditures for operating the agency minus those 4 quarterly direct assessments, less any other revenues. The Iowa Utilities Commission does participate in a few federally funded grants that help cover some of the cost of operations and duties of the Iowa Utilities Commission. We also have some intrastate transfers, reimbursements, if there are any fees. All of that is taken into consideration to reduce the total amount that would be assessed to all entities. And then again, if there were an industry remainder charge that would be applied, removing that, and then the final remainder. And then that goes to, that is assessed to all entities under the jurisdiction of the Iowa Utilities Commission. So at this time, the Iowa Utilities Commission is reviewing what the final numbers are. The Accounting and Assessments Group is doing calculations to share with the chair of the commission and leadership to provide some insight on what those calculations look like, the number of invoices, the amount of outstanding debt to be collected. And once that has been approved, those invoices will be sent out. Typically by the end of the month of October is our normal timing. Should anyone who receives an invoice has any inquiry, they're certainly able to reach out to us for further explanation. But I would anticipate that those invoices will be sent out by the end of the month.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Quick question, couple questions, I guess. One, so so on the remainder billing, when it goes out to the utilities, there's got to be a formula. I mean, so there's equity. I mean, you have big utilities and small utilities, and it doesn't make sense if Osage Municipal Utility is paying the same as Mid-American Energy in terms of remainder billing.
Right, absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, the annual report that is submitted by all of the utilities and providers under the Iowa Utilities Commission jurisdiction provide an annual update on their revenues. And so that is the basis for determining the value of, or the portion they would receive of the remainder assessment. So to your point, is obviously a larger provider would not be invoiced for the same amount as a smaller. It's based on that, is what is their annual operating revenues that they provide to us in the annual report that they're submitting each year. So in 25, when we're calculating that, we're basing that information on their 24 operating revenues that they provided in the spring of 25 with their annual report.
Okay. And then the other thing would be on the remainder, you broke it down by like remainder electric, remainder gas, water, telecommunications. So if I'm following you correctly, so then if I'm recording time for an RTO work that I do at SPP, so that goes to remainder electric because it's dealing with an electric
Correct.
topic.
Right, exactly. So it's not attributable to a specific project or docket. But it does flow through to an electric, I guess I'll say electric industry rather than to the general. And that remainder, that final remainder is almost like a miscellaneous remainder, right? It can't be attributable to a specific project or docket. It can't be attributable really to an industry. So it's what's left. But if there are expenses that qualify to be included for your example, an RTO as an electric provider, or a group of electric providers, that industry would receive that time recorded. It's an option for those to be recorded, and that's why there's sort of a real due diligence by the Iowa Utilities Commission staff members to be mindful about their time recorded, so that providers in the electric industry don't, say for example, receive charges that should have been attributed to something else like telecommunications, water, or gas.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Regarding the financials, the information provided are the September financials for the Iowa Utilities Commission. And I guess I would say at this point, looking over the information and reviewing it, expenses and revenues are consistent with our expectations. I would note that obviously there looks like a significant upside down state in expenses to revenues, but I would also note that through the middle of the month of September, we're concluding the hold open period that I mentioned earlier in the earlier presentation, meaning that it allows us to post revenues or payments received from entities to the prior fiscal year as they really truly belong to them. So those be Q1 through Q4 fiscal 25. And so they can be posted as late as September 15th. And so middle of September forward is at the point where we start attributing those revenues to fiscal 26. And that's why the revenue number looks relatively small. I would anticipate we would see a significant shift by the next time that we have this discussion, as Q4 revenues will continue to be posted to fiscal 26, as well as the remainder assessments. Otherwise, I don't have any concerns or questions at this time. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on the financial update? Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, moving on to item 4, other business items on the agenda, and we will start with Ms. Horace, who will be discussing the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP.
Good morning, Chair Martz and Commissioners Burns and Helen. I'm Keita Horace, Utility Analyst with the Commission, and I'm here today to provide an overview and update of the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP. LIHEAP is a vital federally funded program in Iowa that provides a one-time payment to help qualified low-income families with their heating utility bills. It also offers crisis funding to prevent disconnections and weatherization assistance. The Iowa Department of Health and Human Services, commonly referred to as HHS, manages this program, which is delivered through local nonprofit community action agencies. Additionally, under Iowa law, utilities operate their own voluntary contribution funds, which consumers might know as Project Share or iCare, to further assist low-income individuals. Data from LIHEAP funding year 2025 is not yet available. However, the Iowa profile for LIHEAP funding year 2024 indicates that the program served more than 83,000 households. This includes the one-time heating assistance, year-round crisis assistance, and weatherization. Some states are currently delaying LIHEAP-related programs. However, in an effort to protect as many families as possible, there are no delays in Iowa at this time. Some key dates for LIHEAP in Iowa. The early application period for households with elderly or disabled members opened on October 1st. Our latest communication with HHS reports over 15,000 applications have been received. The winter moratorium preventing heating assistance disconnection or heating service disconnection, for qualified households begins on November 1st and will be in effect until April 1st. The general application period for all other households begins November 1st, and the deadline for all applications is April 30th. Eligibility is primarily based on household income, specifically 200% of the federal poverty level. So for example, a family of four making just over $64,000 annually would qualify. The application process requires consumers to notify their utility of their application, and utilities provide 30 days for approval before any disconnection action would take place. Applications can be submitted online, by mail, or in person at a community action agency, and the process requires documentation, including proof of Social Security number, income, and utility accounts. Once an application is approved, the community action agency notifies the utility and pledges payment. The Iowa LIHEAP funding year, October 1st, 2024 through September 2025, had total funding of $52.7 million. Last year, the state moved to a new software system for processing applications, and it has improved its funding timing and coordination for this upcoming moratorium season starting November 1st. For funding year 2026, allocations are still under review. The proposed federal budget zeroes out funding for the program. At this time of the shutdown, both the Senate and House had proposed bills at the time of the shutdown, proposed bills to increase total funding. So IUC staff is actively collaborating with HHS to monitor funding updates and plan for increased coordination to ensure service for at-risk Iowans. We will inform the public through news releases, website updates, and newsletters. And throughout the year, the IUC customer service staff handles inquiries related to applications, moratorium and disconnections, and funding and payments. We're happy to assist customers who have questions about the program and have already seen an uptick in calls, which is common for this time of year. Do the commissioners have any questions for me?
Any questions?
Maybe not so much a question, but a comment, just kind of connecting the pieces for the public as well. And Michelle talked about enterprise and the civil penalty. The civil penalty that the IUC would impose goes to LIHEAP, correct?
That's correct. That funding would get money to go to the LIHEAP funding in Iowa.
So just kind of connecting a couple dots of two different reports here is that civil penalty that the IUC imposed on enterprise actually does not come
Correct.
to us, but rather goes to help with
To
LIHEAP.
Iowans.
Correct. All right.
Any other questions? Yeah, just thank you, Ms. Horace, and thanks to customer service for keeping an eye on this issue and making sure we're informed so we can inform customers. So thank you for that. All right, next, Mr. Epping will discuss the upcoming winter preparedness meeting that the commission is holding.
Thank you, Chair Marks. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michael Epping. I'm an attorney here at the Utilities Commission. On October 1st of this year, the Commission issued an order, docket number INU 2025-0002, setting a winter preparedness meeting for 10 a.m. on Thursday, November 6th. The Commission has held seasonal preparedness meetings preceding each summer and winter since the spring of 2022. This is another meeting in line with that practice. As noted in the order, the Midwest Reliability Organization released its regional risk assessment report earlier this year, which identified generation outages during extreme cold weather as one of the top risks facing the region. Given that electric service reliability during extreme cold weather continues to be a threat facing the Midwest, it remains important for this agency and for the public to understand how Iowa electric utilities are preparing to reliably serve Iowans through the coming winter season. The order setting the meeting also set forth several technical questions for utilities to answer regarding their winter operations. Written responses to those questions are due 1 week before the winter preparedness meeting is held. Again, the winter preparedness meeting is set for 10 a.m. on Thursday, November 6th. It is a public meeting. Any member of the public can attend either in person or online. Persons that are interested in speaking at the meeting should file a notice of intent to participate in docket number INU 2025-0002 by Thursday, October 30th. I'm prepared to hear any questions the commissioners may have regarding the winter preparedness meeting.
Any questions?
Just comment that thank you for putting this together. I think this is, I've been in attendance to all these since 2022 and just so the public knows, it's a good exercise. It's a good way for us and our utilities to have a conversation about what things look like. And nobody would have known in 2022 what we're facing in 2025 and how tight things have become because of the exponential load growth. So this is a really good exercise. It's a good communication piece between us and the utilities, and just appreciate you and your efforts in putting this together every season. So thank you, Mr. Epping.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Epping. All right, and finally, Mr. Martin will discuss security updates of the IUC. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Chair Marks, Commissioners Burns and Helland. I'm pleased to share this information with you today. The IUC regularly looks at safety and security aspects, be it with the building or with providing the best environment possible for visitors and our staff. As you're aware, there has been an increase in public unrest and politically motivated violence across the country in recent months. Looking at our needs, the IUC has made a few recent changes to improve agency security in the last month. First, the doors to the customer service area now remain locked during business hours. The lobby is still open to the public from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., but members of the public will need to knock or call the number posted on the customer service door to speak to a representative in person. This is in line with how several other Capitol Complex buildings handle access to employee work areas. Second, we have always maintained a strong partnership with the Iowa State Patrol and are regularly in contact with Post 16 when our staff travels or when we are hosting events. Going forward, Post 16 will provide an additional security presence in the building during higher traffic events, such as this monthly public meeting. The presence of state troopers is not intended to deter anyone from entering or doing business in a state public building. We are simply mindful that the best security plans include awareness of surroundings and the ability to respond if a need arises. We believe these added security measures will give public visitors an added level of comfort in knowing that the IUC takes safety and security matters seriously. We continue to review our practices regularly, and I will provide any updates if additional changes are made. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I did have one clarification question about the access to customer service. You're saying folks can still get in, it's just an additional step to kind of get buzzed in that first door. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, I appreciate the updates. I think, like you said, we're doing all this with accessibility in mind. So there's no intention to reduce accessibility to the public, but just to kind of add some security and safety for our staff and for folks that are visiting us for meetings or events. So any questions or comments?
No, just appreciate the efforts. Just one thing I would see if we could look into a little bit, just it seems like if you came and you needed to go to customer service and you needed to call a number or knock on the door, I'm just thinking of our public school systems, and you have a buzzer, you push it like a doorbell, and you can communicate via that doorbell with the individual. If that was something we could look into, just to maybe eliminate a barrier if somebody forgot their cell phone or they couldn't make the call, or some sort of ease there to communicate with people in customer service, if that's something we could look into. And I do appreciate the efforts on this. Unfortunately, we are now living in a environment in which this has to be talked about. I mean, we can't talk about it after the fact of something happening. We need to be proactive, and and I think your point about protecting, it's not just about IUC commissioners or IUC staff, it's about every single person in this room. Like, we want to host events in which people feel safe, and it's our obligation to make sure we provide that environment. So I appreciate those efforts. And I think, probably more so, we do go on the road and we do host events outside this building. And so I think it's important that we take a look at that as well, and making sure, because we're in environments in which we're not used to. It's foreign to us. And so I think it's really important that we really look at that and make sure that we always have safe environments for all those people that are attending our events outside the building as well. So appreciate those efforts. And unfortunately, this is the world we're living in right now, and we have to have these conversations. I wish we didn't have to, but it's the reality. So thank you for your efforts.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Is there any additional business the commissioners would like to discuss? All right. Before opening up the meeting to public comment, I just wanted to mention some future scheduling items. We do have a number of scheduling conflicts with other events occurring in December. So we will not be holding the December monthly commission meeting. We will pick that back up in the new year, and our January meeting is currently scheduled to be on January 21st. We will also still be having our monthly meeting in November on the 19th. But just wanted to give a heads up that the December meeting will not occur just due to scheduling conflicts. So it is now the time for public comment. I do have the sign-in sheet with the individuals who indicated they would like to make comments today. When I call your name, please come up to the podium and be sure to speak clearly into the microphone. And a reminder that all comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and verbal comments are not filed in any docket. So if you would like those to be part of a docket record, you need to work with customer service to file that. Again, commissioners are in listening only mode for this portion of the meeting. We cannot address contested case matters pending before the commission. And commission staff will be sharing a timer for your viewing in front of you here at the desk instead of showing it on the screen, as we're kind of hoping that improves the viewing experience online. So I will get to our list here. Our first commenter is Darlene Partlow.
Good morning. I'm Darlene Partlow from Guthrie County, a landowner. As you know, Summit's been really busy trying to invent themselves this summer. They dismissed their former CEO and the management team and hired a new CEO who is attempting to rebrand this company as a trusted company that supports the landowners in rural communities. In August, the landowners on the proposed route received a feel-good letter from the new CEO, who introduced himself as someone who wants to protect, innovate, communicate, create value, and act with integrity. We're not fooled by this letter. This is still the same company, the same project, the same goals, using our taxpayer money. In September, Summit sent out a packet that read, Summit Carbon Solutions Community and Landowner Partnership Program and our commitments. Much of this so-called program is already required by law and a condition of the permit. And recently, they filed the amendments and the consolidation of dockets that rewrites their whole original application. Then they requested that the district court remand the case back to this commission. Summit is trying to circumvent the legal system. And as you know, the hearing was held on Friday, October 10th, and the decision is supposed to be made in 2 to 3 weeks. Phase 1 and Phase 2 landowners are going to continue to resist and refuse signing easements for Summit's pipeline to nowhere. The IUC has stipulated that Summit could not begin construction until they had permits in South Dakota and North Dakota to go ahead. Those have not been, well, South Dakota did not approve their project, and Summit agreed to the terms. Since that didn't happen, it's now time for the IUC to dismiss all of Phase 2 dockets and to rescind the Phase 1 permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Carter.
Kathy Carter. I'm an impacted landowner in Floyd County, but I am reading on behalf of Candy Larson, who also is a Floyd County resident and cannot be here today. Her statement: I am reading for Candy Brandow Larson. She couldn't be here today because she is a farm income tax preparer and is busy working for her clients. My family owns land in the path of the 2023-0004 Summit docket. The proposed route will run a quarter mile from me and my husband's home, but more upsetting is that it will also run a half a mile from my son, daughter-in-law, and our 5- and 6-year-old grandchildren's home. It's proposed to run through our never-tilled pasture and under Flood Creek, which by its namesake floods multiple times every year. My heritage is German and Iroquois tribe. My ancestors did not live on Flood Creek, but other tribes did. We find their arrowheads often. My great-grandfathers, grandfathers, father, husband, son, and soon grandson are all farmers. I understand farming, but I don't buy that a CO2 pipeline will somehow save the family farm. We don't want the pipeline to dissect our land and our lives. Why should Summit's business plan be more important than our farming plan, than our lives and livelihood? They claim they will go to the neighbor if we don't want the pipeline, but they aren't. Instead, they chose to file an Exhibit H against us. They don't even try to talk to the guy across the fence. When they announced our 2023 docket, the 2021 hearing was just beginning. We were able to listen to the testimony, but the 2024 landowners were unaware they would be targeted when the 2021 hearing began. Grouping all 15 dockets into one hearing would be a huge violation of landowner rights. Since when does a private company's convenience bear more weight than Iowans' ability to protect their constitutional rights? Property rights mean something in this country. We should have the ability to say no to Summit. Please give us our power back. The threat of eminent domain takes away our property rights, our leverage in negotiations, and our ability to decide what is best for our farms.
Thank you. Colleen Tucker.
Good morning. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak. However, if a senator in Montana has his way, me standing before you would cause me to be a felon. Even the signs on my property would cause me to be a felon. And believe me, this is not on my bucket list. Once again, I'm standing before you talking about eminent domain. The U.S. Constitution and the Iowa law allows eminent domain only for a project that serves a clear public purpose. As a result of this project, private landowners will experience increased responsibilities and risks with no benefits. Even with the company's precautions, the tainted land will be not fully restored to its current condition, leading to changes in soil quality, drainage systems, and crop productivity, which are just a few to name. The monies that Summit is offering is very insulting to my family's legacy. There will also be an impact on the property value that will influence future sales. Many land and home buyers will have a concern about purchasing property near a CO2 pipeline. Another concern, is Summit going to work around and respect any economic development that the counties have put in place? Is the company going to grow a heart and start to learn to listen to people? The company claims to be new and improved and has recently sent out feel-good letters to targeted landowners as well as to the County Board of Supervisors. However, I have concerns about the accuracy and the transparency of information the company is providing to the residents of Iowa. For example, I recently watched the project update presented by the company at the Webster County Board of Supervisors meeting. During the presentation, J.D. Myers, manager of the Ag and Stakeholder Relations, whatever that is, recommended remaining indoors in the event of a CO2 leak because, quote, the CO2 isn't going to force its way inside your house, end quote. I'm not a scientist, but this advice prompted concern, so I did a simple Google search. The response I got was yes, CO2 from a pipeline leak can force its way into your house. As it is a gas, it can enter through basement windows, cracks in the foundation, floor drains, sump pumps, HVAC intakes, and crawl spaces. Remember, houses are not airtight. Yesterday, I was at the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors meeting, and Kaylee Gibson, the agent for Summit, was giving her presentation on the update of the project. I again asked that same question, and her response was the same, shelter in place. If the company's agents can't rely accurate information in a public meeting, and I just gave you one example, how can the IUC trust anything that the company is providing? With misinformation coming from the company and the fact that they want to change the rules in the middle of the game, the IUC should revoke their permit. Do not let a private industry write the rules and the changes that the company is proposing are more than just minor tweaks, and they are challenging the IUC's integrity. I'm hoping that something that is being said, a phrase that a landowner is saying, something will trigger something in you and say, yep, the landowners are right. Please stop the madness. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Cynthia Hansen.
Good morning, Cynthia Hansen, Shelby County Century Farm owner. I want to speak to Summit's request to amend their permit if the court allows their request to remand it back to the IUC. From the first hearing at the Capitol, Summit claimed landowners were trying to change the rules in the middle of the game, but it's Summit who has been trying to change the rules in the middle of the game. Our land use, which really is not a game to us. Summit won their permit, and now they aren't happy with the score. They don't want a rematch. They want a redo of the same game. Talk about trying to change the rules in the middle of that game. From the first information meeting with Summit in Harlan, the misinformation flowed from how safe these pipelines were. It's like the bubbles in a can of pop. To we're here to work with the landowners and the counties. We know how dishonest and disrespectful Summit has been to all of us. We know these high-pressure CO2 pipelines have the potential to be extremely dangerous and deadly. And as a critical care nurse, I can give you more facts than you would ever get from Summit. As for working with everyone, they surveyed our land without our permission. They've sued multiple landowners over survey rights. They've sued our counties, Shelby County, They've been bad faith actors. I attended the Pipeline Safety Trust National Conference 2 years in a row. And speaking with other pipeline company representatives, they have all said that Summit gives the industry a black eye. Summit is the kid on the block that nobody wants on their team. I request that if their permit is remanded back to you, that you deny Summit's request to amend their permit. If they want to make changes, they should start over with a new permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Peg Rasmussen.
Good morning. Thank you a lot for allowing me to speak to you. I am a landowner in Montgomery County, and I am actually reading a statement from James Norris from Red Oak, which is in Montgomery County. So these are his words. He's not able to be here today. So, and I just want to point out that I always appreciate Commissioner Burns wanting to educate the public in terms of what the Iowa Utilities Commission does. So James presents this as a story, hoping to better, understand what's going on. So he says, have I got a deal for you? Let's pretend I'm from the federal government and I want to help you with your business. Let's say this business is farming. How about this offer? I'll buy your land, tractors, combine, planter, seed, and fertilizer. I'll pay all your costs. In fact, what if I take care of your neighbor's land too? He might not want to sell. That's okay. We'll just take it and use it, and I'll pay for that too. When it comes to times to spray, you'll be able to go within 50 feet of your neighbor's house. Don't worry. Some federal agency said it's okay. Here's the part you're really going to love. When it comes harvest time, you keep the crop. Sell to whoever or whatever market you want to. So have any of the commissioners here ever been in business for yourself? None of the people in this room are getting this type of deal. In fact, it doesn't get any better than that. So here's just a couple of problems. As long as you don't mind that your business is being fully funded by the American taxpayer, and you don't mind that your business tramples on the rights and safeties of your neighbors. Now, I have no power in reality to make that offer, but that is exactly the business model of Summit Carbon Solutions. I hope you can see how ridiculous and absurd this is. The American taxpayer will be burdened with the entire upfront costs of this pipeline, while citizens and communities will be deprived of their rights to property, their need for water, and endanger their safety. Even Summit themselves have publicly admitted tax credits through the 45Q tax credit programs will pay for the entire project. At the end of the unknown route, Summit is going to sell the CO2 for enhanced oil recovery, even though they said originally they're going to sequester it. Their amendment asks to change the end use. That's very significant. In our farming scenario, Summit gets to keep the entire crop. What a deal. Our nation is $37 trillion in debt. You don't have to look too far to see where the waste, fraud, and abuse is. So the commission's not responsible for the waste of taxpayer dollars, but you are responsible at a minimum to hold Summit accountable to the original conditions and to protect the landowners and citizens of this state. We would like you to deny Summit's request for consolidation and also deny their motion to attend. The commission does not owe a for-profit company that is neither a utility nor a common carrier the ability to fundamentally usurp our rights.
Thank you. Jess Mazur.
Thank you very much for letting me speak. My name is Jess Mazur. I work for the Sierra Club Iowa chapter, and I just want to talk about 5 years. We are going on 5 years of this. And after 5 years of debating a specific request for a petition, Summit wants to change it. After you issued an order with conditions that were agreed upon between you and Summit, now they want to change it. And that change that they're requesting, they're not even telling us where it's going or what it's going to be used for. But they think that's enough information for you to change your mind on something that we've been working on already for 5 years. And then they want to consolidate too. We've already asked for that twice. Twice. We wanted these consolidated. Summit fought it and we lost. And now here we are with 16 dockets. But now Summit wants to change it and consolidate it. They want it separate when it's convenient for them. They want it consolidated when it's convenient for them. They want the conditions when it's convenient for them. They want the conditions removed when it's convenient for them. They don't own the Iowa Utilities Commission. They don't get to write the rules and just manipulate the process anytime they see fit for them. That's your job. And you already spent the time going over their application in depth, granting them a permit, despite us saying you shouldn't have, with those conditions. Why should those be removed now just because Summit can't meet those conditions? That's not our problem, that's their problem. They chose this path. They wrote their own rules through this. They fought us every step of the way. They got their way. And now it's not working, so they're going to change it? No, that is not how this works. If they want to change everything, they can start over and we'll go through it again. If it takes 5 years, I guess it will take 5 years. But let's think what has happened in 5 years. Some of these landowners who put everything that they have into making sure they're protecting their land have died. They never got to know the outcome of this case. In 5 years, some kids graduated high school, went to college, and have already graduated. And who knows if their plans for the future, whether or not they're going to go back to the farm, have changed. Because after 5 years, there's still uncertainty. Think of the money that has been spent on this from everyday Iowans who never wanted it. 5 years worth of money that could be going to the next generation, investments in their farm, retirement, you name it. But instead, for 5 years, it went to lawyers' fees and gas and everything else that it's costed people. Enough is enough. Summit got its way, and they don't get to change the rules now because it's not going to work for them. 5 years in this. No consolidation, no amendment. Let's get this through court and be done so that we can go about our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Glade.
Good morning. My name is Julie Glade. I am a targeted landowner in Wright County on phase 1. I want to show you today what we landowners have been having to deal with over the last 5 years. I received this stack of mail from Summit last month, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that gets a stack of mail from them. The first one is to me, to my address, which is great. The second one is to my sister, addressed with my address, and as far as I know, my sister's never lived with me, so not sure why that's happening. The third one is to Dorley D. Hill Life Estate, who was my mother. The fourth one is to the estate of Dorla Hill. Mom passed away in December of 2022. They're still sending letters to my dead mother. And I'm sorry, but it just feels a little disrespectful that they can't bother to check the public records. And the final one is to Hill Sisters LLC. It's evident here that Summit can't be bothered with the pesky details of who actually owns the land they're trying to take. I'm not confident that they can be trusted with all the other details that go along with building a hazardous CO2 pipeline, like the millions of vitally important welds in a pipeline crisscrossing our state, one of which runs 600 feet from our acreage where our family lives. I think the dollar signs in Summit's eyes have distracted them from the details. They are getting impatient and they're getting desperate to get pipes in the ground. So now they want to change the conditions of their permit because they can't meet the conditions set by this commission. The big reason for the problems that they're running into is because what has happened in South Dakota when they passed laws that ban the use of eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. And look, it was Summit's business decision to immediately sue anyone who dare get in their way. It was their business decision to trespass on private property in order to move ahead with surveying on land that they wanted to take. It was Summit's arrogance and incompetence that caused the people of South Dakota to rise up and say enough is enough. And that's what we are here today to convey to you. Don't Iowa landowners deserve the same protections under our Constitution? Please deny Summit's motion to consolidate dockets and amend its permit in docket HLP 2021-001. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Webb.
Good morning, Sherry Webb from Shelby County, Century Farm Owner. So frustration, probably not the only way to describe my feelings, but it's the best word for now. Amendment, consolidation, utilization, larger pipe, route changes, add a plant. Where, oh, where is the CO2 going to go? Sounds like a pipeline to nowhere. And your attorney just stated a little bit ago, a few changes. I think there's a lot of changes on this, not just a few. Although I guess people define a few by 3 or more. Why is phase 1 HLP 2021-001 being included in the consolidation? We're done, I thought. Does it seem as though the game board looks like Candyland? Because that's what I'm looking at. Someone has maneuvered and manipulated their way around the corners and has all of a sudden slid back down to the bottom. To the I'm not a lawyer eye, because I'm not, it appears that the number of requests, changes, revisions, modifications, however you want to put in this start over a new application. It's a landing spot on the game board for them. This is truly an opportunity for you, the commissioners, to do the right thing and put an end to this tax wasting, money wasting project and require a new application to fill in all the blanks, boxes, lines completed, not a we'll let you know later. No one is preventing Summit from going through South Dakota, but Summit. They don't want to work hard enough. They can find landowners that want that to go through their land. They can get through South Dakota. It is their decision that they have decided they can't get there. It's the same way anywhere else. If you want to build something, you find a way to do it. I have said this over and over before. Summit is building this pipeline on our backs, using our land and then collecting our tax money based tax credits to line their pockets. The only people profiting from this and benefiting from this project are the private investors. CO2 is not a utility. I retired in April 21 for 4 months. In August of 21, we started to fight this pipeline, and it is a full-time job. I will find another job to continue paying legal bills if I have to. We will never sign. No is no. Thank you.
Thank you. We have reached the end of our public comment list. Is there anything else to come before the commission today? Okay, thank you all for coming to the monthly commission meeting. Our next meeting will be held at 9 a.m. Wednesday, November 19th. Information on the meeting, the agenda, and virtual link will be available on the commission's website and on our hearing and meeting calendar. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.